Members, I call the Environment and Natural Resources Policy and Finance Committee to order. I'm seeing that we have a quorum. Let's first work on the minutes. Lead Fisher, have you reviewed the minutes?
Thank you, Chair Heintzeman. I've reviewed the minutes and I move their adoption.
All right, very good. Thank you, Lead Fisher. Lead Fisher moves the minutes from March 4th. All those in favor of the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes carry. All right, so we do have a fairly full agenda today, but I don't think that it's going to be too tight. We are probably going to be fine on time. I would just remind those that are signed up to testify that in spite of the less than stressful schedule today, try to keep it as tight as you can. I'm not going to have a timer going, but please do be respectful to those that are coming behind you and try to keep it tight. So first up on that schedule is Representative Skraba with House File 566. The motion is that 566 be recommended to be re-referred to the Transportation, Finance, and Policy Committee. I will make that motion for you, Representative Skraba, since you are not a member of the committee. And if you would introduce yourself for the record and begin your testimony, that would be great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name's Representative Roger Skraba, District 3A. Thank you, Chair Heintzeman and committee. We're here to present File 566, a bill that provides cities with the authority, not a mandate, and the authority to allow ATVs to operate on public roads in very specific circumstances. This legislation is about giving local communities with a population of less than 25,000 people the flexibility to decide whether they want to permit ATVs to use short designated routes on shoulders of trunk highways to connect homes and businesses. The road segment must be posted speed limit of 45 miles per hour or less, and there must be no visible, viable alternative public routes. I'm just going to let my testifier here fill in all the blanks, what's going on. It's going to go to transportation, and they're going to be testifying also, so we'll have some communications. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, very good. And sir, if you would introduce yourself for the record and begin your testimony, that'd be great.
Thank you. My name is Nick Wagnum. I'm the Secretary of the Board of ATV Minnesota. I'm from up in Ely. This is my friend Roger Skraba. We've known each other for a long time, so it's nice to be here today with him. This bill is one that's kind of near and dear to my heart. I've been pushing for this one for a long time. As a state board, we kind of look at all the things in Minnesota, right? Not just things that affect our communities, but others as well. And we've had a chance to travel around to different parts of the state and look at what those issues are, whether it's down in Rushford or over in Wabasso or up to Perham or Park Rapids or Moose Lake or what have you. And each area, there's challenges, right? Some areas have some public land, some have no public land. And in building trails, we're always looking to be in public land if we can. But we did see one common thread. What went through a lot of communities in our state are state highways. And if you have a state highway in your community, that limits you for ATV traffic. How do we get ATVs to different locations in town so they can spend money while they're there? How do they get to the restaurant? How do they get to their hotel? How do they get to a watering place or wherever they're trying to get to? So we've been trying to figure out a way to make that change happen. And I'll go back to where it really started for me, was a newspaper clipping. I tried to find it before I came here today, but it was a story about a homecoming queen. And I think it was down in Zumbrota, if I remember right. And she was trying to get from her house to the high school for the homecoming dance. And on her way there, she took the main drag, right? She just figured, well, that's the quickest way to get there. I'll just drive right down. And the local police officer pulled her over and said, you can't drive here. It's a state highway. You're not allowed to do so. So in that case, here's our homecoming queen sitting, trying to get to the homecoming dance and breaking a law she probably wasn't even that much aware of. But what that told me is we need to make a change. We need to find a way so we're not penalizing people for just trying to get from one location to another because the state highway goes through their community. That's what this bill seeks to change. I'm well aware of it because where I'm from in Ely, we have this same thing. State Highway 169, Highway 1 goes right through our community. Just down the road in Tower, it's the same thing. And it's that way in Monoman and Montrose and Mapleton and Moose Lake and many more. Badger's another one. So many of those communities. So if we could find a way to make this happen, and I know it's an uphill battle, but we're going to keep trying, I'd appreciate your support in doing so. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I think next up on the list is Mr. Johnson, MNDOT. Mr. Johnson, if you would introduce yourself for the record and begin, that'd be great.
My name is Ken Johnson. I'm the Assistant State Traffic Engineer out of MnDOT's Office of Traffic Engineering.
Proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and representatives. From an ATV operational perspective, we absolutely understand why this is desired, because the trunk highway is sometimes the only road connecting the local community to the trail system. We already see ATVs using our roadways this way across the state. However, MnDOT does have concerns about a broad application of this bill as written from a traffic safety perspective. Having ATVs operate with or near heavier and faster-moving vehicles is not consistent with our Towards Zero Death goals. ATVs aren't designed with the same safety features of other vehicles on the roadway system. Our traffic staff recommends that ATVs operate in the ditch or backslope whenever possible. This is also an area of rising concern within the TZD coalitions. In 2024, there were 23 fatal crashes on the roadway system across the state involving ATVs and UTVs. This is compared to 8 in 2023 and 14 in 2022. To give you a sense of the scale, the 23 ATV, UTV fatal crashes is compared to 8 bicyclists, 56 pedestrians, and 76 motorcyclists. From 20 to 24, on trunk highways with a speed limit of 45 miles per hour or less within cities that have a population of 25,000 or less, as stated in the bill, there have been 8 ATV crashes, including 1 serious injury crash. A broad application of this bill, we think those numbers would increase. The legislation requires that an ordinance be passed, but there's also the possibility, this one thing we're concerned about is that people may interpret this law as long as the speed limit is 45 miles an hour or less, I could drive my ATV on this road. We're just concerned about that. A lot of the 30 to 45 mile per hour trunk highways are also multi-lane, and we have strong reservations with ATVs and UTVs operating on those specific types of roads. Their size and design make them difficult to see, and they really don't have the safety features to reduce the consequence of higher speed crashes. But MnDOT is absolutely willing to work with Representative Skraba to determine ways that we can reduce the safety concerns. We encourage involving the Department of Public Safety and the DNR and talk about those broad safety applications and how we can do this a little more safely.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and I'm not seeing anyone else signed up on an official list. So members, before I go to questions, I'll just make sure that there's no one else in the audience that might like to testify on House File 566. Quick scan. I'm not seeing any others, so members, any questions on the bill?
It's not that good.
Lead Fisher.
Thank you, Chair Heintzeman. One of the concerns I have a question on or concerns around is I know it's 25,000. That's rather large, and I know that down in the metro area, particularly as you start getting in the rural areas, you start catching a lot more communities. It seems very overly broad in that area. How did you come up with the number 25,000, or what was the reasoning on that?
Representative Skraba, or if you have someone else that'd like to address that, please bring them up.
Perhaps phone a friend.
Very good. We will
Ron, do
wait.
you have an answer for it or not? We had that, Representative Fisher, we did have this cursory discussion about that. Most of the communities were talking about 12 to 14,000, but, go ahead, Ron. Yeah.
Please introduce yourself for the record, and if you heard the question, go ahead and proceed with what you might like to address.
Mr. Chair, Committee, my name's Ron Potter. I'm the ATV president, ATV Minnesota president. The number came, last year we introduced this bill, and we looked at kind of where the issues were surfacing in outstate Minnesota and what the typical population of some of those communities were. And we felt that 25,000 was a reasonable approach. So there's really no science behind it. It's just taking a look at where the issues were and how we could possibly address those.
Lead Fisher, in the Brainerd Lakes area, there's a lot of, in addition to ATVs and such, there's also a lot of golf carts. And it's amazing how there can be so many different facets to an issue, and there's certain rules that apply to ATVs that don't apply to golf carts. And I think the next stop is going to be Transpro. So that's another opportunity maybe to get at this and work on the issue further. But go ahead if you have follow-up.
No follow, just like to do a roll call on it.
Roll call has been requested. Any other questions, members? Any other comments? I'm not seeing any, so we will proceed to a roll call. Mr. Yang, if you'd like to take the vote.
Chair Heintzeman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burkel,
Yes.
Lead Fisher,
No.
Representative Falconer,
No.
Representative Finke, Representative Gilman, Representative Hanson, Representative Jacob, Representative Jordan, excused, Representative Nelson, Representative Purcell,
Purcell, no.
Representative Schultz,
Yes.
Representative Warwas.
Yes.
Members, that's 7 yes and 5 nay. The motion is approved.
Did you renew your motion to re-refer it?
I would renew my motion that House File 566 be re-referred to the Transportation, Finance, and Policy Committee. Can I?
Do we have to do the vote over? Oh, yeah.
Thank you, members. Yes, that's great advice. Next on the agenda, Representative Skraba, we continue working on your bills, House File 274. And the motion is that House File 274 be recommended to be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee this time. And again, as Representative Skraba, you're not a member of the committee, I will make that motion. And if you have testifiers, feel free to bring them forward. Otherwise, go ahead and begin your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 testifiers on Zoom and DNR Parks. Mr. Krosberg here. First, I want to introduce the bill. This directs the Minnesota DNR to update the master plan for the CJ Ramstad North Shore State Trail to consider allowing ATV use on portions of the trail located in Cook and Lake counties. To support the planning effort, it appropriates $25,000 in fiscal year 2026 from the all-terrain vehicle account in Natural Resources Fund to the Commissioner of Natural Resources. It's important to note that this bill does not automatically open the trail to ATV use. That's a misnomer. There's some concern about that. But it does simply ensures that the ATV access is considered as part of an updated master plan. The CJ Ramstad North Shore State Trail is already a motorized trail providing vital connection across 146 miles of some of Minnesota's most scenic and rugged landscapes, the North Shore of Lake Superior. The proposal is supported by both Cook County and Lake County boards of commissioners, reflecting strong local interest in expanding responsible multiple use access to this important corridor. I appreciate the committee's time and consideration. I'm pleased to have with me today Lake County Commissioner Rick Gudermont and Mickey Burzell from the Cook County ATV Club, who will provide further testimony. Thanks again, Chair Heintzeman.
Thank you, Representative Skraba. And if technology works and our Lake County Commissioner is available, please identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hello, this is Rick Goodermont, Lake County Commissioner. Everybody hear me all right?
We do.
Okay. Thank you, distinguished legislators, and also thank Chairman Heintzeman and the committee for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm a Lake County Commissioner, and this is now my 34th year of serving the citizens of Lake County. I'm very familiar with the CJ Ramsdale Trail, having grown up next to it and logging thousands of snowmobile miles on this trail. The topography and location of this trail makes it a perfect fit to be a multi-use trail. Although previously known as the North Shore Trail, it is nowhere close to the shores of Lake Superior. It does parallel the shoreline, but in fact is several miles inland from the lake. Close to 2 decades ago, Lake County took on the initiative to open sections of the trail to ATV use in the summer. This was a huge success and provided year-round use of the same trail, snowmobile in the winter and ATV in the summer. With year-round use by the multiple user groups, the trail became much easier to maintain. The sections that are open to ATV use provided integral connections between all the major communities in Lake County. Our experience with multi-use trails began many years before our request to open a CJ Ramstad. The Red Dot Trail connected Silver Bay with Beaver Bay in Finland had been in existence for decades with endless advantages. After portions of the CJ Ramstad were open to ATV use, we went on to build the Moose Walk and Moose Run trails, again, multi-use with great successes over the last couple decades. The past few years, our neighboring counties have witnessed the benefits of having ATVs on this trail and have joined our pursuit to have the entire length of the trail open to ATVs. In our county master plan, the goal is to connect all the communities in northeast Minnesota together with a continuous trail system. Presently, many of these connections are being provided by allowing AT use on our county roads. Although in some cases this works, it certainly isn't giving these families the outdoor riding experience they are looking for. The CJ Ramstad is the exact connection needed to connect all of our North Shore communities without the requirement of building another trail. On another point, the face of outdoor recreation is changing. When this trail was built, there were over 100 different manufacturers of snowmobiles. For the last 2 decades, there have only been 4. In the past year, 3, with presently only 2 now producing snowmobiles. On the contrary, ATVs and now side-by-sides are selling at record levels. Furthermore, the inclusion of the side-by-side has opened the outdoor trail riding experience to our fast-growing elderly population. Once again, I would like to thank the committee for listening to my comments and Lake County request that you support the bill to open a CJ Ramstad Trail master plan for further study as to the best uses of this trail moving forward. And thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next on the list is Cook County ATV. I think we're looking for Mr. Bazell.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead and introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Mickey Barzell, president of the Cook County ATV Club. We've been a club now for 24 years. And about 20 years ago, we were been asking and looking at trying to get the North Shore State Trail open for our recreations. And we've been waiting a long time, and we are really excited to have this opportunity for the DNR to look at the master plan and make this maybe a reality finally. It's been a long time. I think all of our groups and connecting to Lake County is such a great idea. I know the trail is a pretty decent trail the way it is right now. And we're just hoping that whatever we can do to make this a reality is something that we've been waiting for a long time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for taking the time to share your testimony. We very much appreciate that. I have someone from DNR, I think it's Andrew, that will be testifying. There you are. Please introduce yourself for the record and go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to this bill. My name is Andrew Korsberg. I work with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Division of Parks and Trails. As you've heard the other testifiers say, the C.J. Ramstad North Shore State Trail is a 153-mile-long, multi-use natural surface trail that runs from Duluth to Grand Marais. It is known as one of Minnesota's premier snowmobile trails, where it connects to hundreds of miles of snowmobile grant and aid trails in many communities in the area. The trail was originally built for snowmobile use, but other users enjoy the trail, including hikers, horseback riders, and mountain bikers. For example, some sections overlap with the Superior Hiking Trail. DNR has heard from ATV stakeholders, as you've heard earlier, that they would like to add ATV use to the North Shore State Trail, especially in Lake and Cook counties from Finland to Grand Marais. This bill would require the DNR to modify the State Trail Master Plan to allow new motorized use to sections of this trail within those counties. Modifying the plan to allow ATV use would not necessarily mean that the DNR would be able to open all sections of the trail in its current state. Some segments would be more straightforward to open than others, which is what we would need to determine through the planning process. In 2005, legislation directed the DNR to complete an ATV use on the North Shore feasibility study. And in this report is available on the DNR website, and it highlights a couple of key important points about adding ATV use on the trail. For example, the DNR does not own all the land that the trail is on. Non-state landowners include the U.S. Forest Service, Cook and Lake counties, and some private landowners. DNR has agreements in place for this current use, and so these agreements would need to be revisited if the trail were to be changed, trail use were to be changed. Some of the trail passes through state parks where ATV use isn't allowed, and so alternate routes would need to be identified in those cases. Some segments of the trail would not be capable of sustaining ATV traffic in its current condition, and so modifications would be required. Since the trail was primarily developed for snowmobile use, over snow, much of the treadway is not set up for year-round motor vehicle use, so that would mean the treadway would need gravel or stabilization in order to accommodate ATV traffic. In addition, environmental review would be needed to complete it before any trail improvements were made to add ATV use. There also would be costs associated with this work, completing it, including trail upgrades and maintenance costs associated with managing new ATV use on the trail. And so in the long term, DNR would need funding for this work and then also on an ongoing basis. Regarding the report requirement, we would hope that the timing of the report would allow for enough time for us to engage the landowners and the public in the planning process. So February 26th is a little bit of a tight timeline to do that work. Regarding the costs of the planning and the appropriation, the costs to complete the plan are higher than the $25,000 appropriated associated with this bill, but the DNR is prepared to adjust our existing planning work to prioritize this plan. So we're not asking for additional funding, at least in this case. So ideally, DNR would be able to use the planning process to work with the public and landowners and stakeholders, including current trail users, to identify the segments where ATV use could be accommodated or to pursue alternate routes. As I mentioned, there are a variety of other trail users, such as snowmobilers, hikers, and horseback riders. And so we want to coordinate with these other groups in the planning process as well. So in short, amending the master plan to allow ATV use is the first step in this process, but there would need to be a number of additional steps and considerations before people could ride their ATV on the trail. So with that, I said we're happy to work with the author of the bill as it goes forward. Thank you.
Very good. Members, we've come to the end of that list. Are there any other folks here in attendance today that want to testify to the bill? Seeing none. Members, questions? Seeing no questions from members, Representative Skraba, looks like your team has covered whatever concerns there might have otherwise been. So I will turn it back to you for final word, and then I'll make the motion to refer the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. Pretty cut and dried. It's what the local folks wanted, and my job is to help bring it through the legislature what they want, and I'm looking forward to working with anyone, Representative Fisher, on the other bill, the 25,000, if that's an issue, let's talk about it. I'm pretty accessible. But other than that, thank you for your time, and look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Thank you, Representative Skraba, for your bill. I renew the motion that House File 274 be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee. Members, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Your bill is referred, Representative. So next up, Representative Warwas, House File 279.
Thank you, Cal.
Yeah, Representative Warwas, you followed the tradition, I see, very well. You took notes. Everybody got treats, or at least a chance if they wanted some. So go ahead and begin your testimony. The motion is that House File 279 be recommended to be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee. You are a member of this committee, so if you would like to make that motion, you may.
Thank you, Chair. That is my motion to move House File 279. I appreciate that. And for any of those that did not get a cookie, they're over there in, oh, you're sending them back around. Okay, so they were made fresh last night. So yes, Chair Heintzeman and members of the committee, today I'm excited to present my first bill. And to celebrate that, and since it's an unwritten rule of committee work in this place, I have brought treats, homemade chocolate chip cookies, made with love and care by my daughter Isabel, who also works in the House Republican caucus, as some of you know. She is, in my opinion, generally unrivaled in baking skill, and I hope you all agree, so please enjoy. House File 279 is a bill I've been working on with the folks at ATV Minnesota, and a lot of my constituents are really excited about. We've also got some great bipartisan support, specifically from Reps John Hewitt and Pete Johnson, for which I'm very grateful. So to the bill, it funds a few ATV projects in St. Louis County that will improve trail connectivity, safety, and accessibility in our region for a sport that is loved by so many people in my district as well as across the state. The overall appropriation is $952,000 from the dedicated ATV account, spent as follows. $75,000 to the Alborn Dirt Devils to engineer, permit, and acquire right-of-way for a new trail connecting County Road 166 to Ostman Road. $480,000 to engineer and construct the Seven Beavers ATV trail. $100,000 to permit, design, engineer, and acquire right-of-way for a trail connecting the Lumberjack to Brookston Trail. $97,000 to the Quad Cities ATV Club to engineer, survey, test, and design a new trailhead facility. And finally, $200,000 for a comprehensive study to establish ATV route connectivity to and from, or to and through, the western part of Duluth. So a lot of exciting projects there. And I have a couple testifiers that can provide a bit more detail. And after that, we'd be happy to take questions. Mike, you want to join me?
So Representative, I have first Mr. Jugovich, St. Louis County Commissioner, if
Yes,
that's
sir.
correct. And it sounds like we got it right, so please introduce yourself for the record, Commissioner, and go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee. My name is Mike Jugovich. I am a St. Louis County Commissioner, District 7. I represent Hibbing, Chisholm, Floodwood, God's country, so to speak. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I know there may be some questions, but I want to speak to you a little bit about this bill. It's providing connectivity for our Northeast Regional Joint ATVs Board. We are working on including Itasca County. We are growing, and we are showing that we can have sustainable trails with being responsible at the same time and providing economic development. 2023, we had a study done, and we found that we had an economic impact of about $36.1 million, and that will continue to grow. This is something northeastern Minnesota needs. Economic development is very important to us, tourism, and we want to continue to be good stewards of the land at the same time promoting tourism and economic development. It's a win-win for everyone. So we are working daily to get these trails up and running. As I said, connectivity is a big deal. We want to include Itasca County. We want to get into Aiken County and continue to grow and be sustainable and responsible. But that being said, I know you've all done your homework. I would be more than happy to answer any questions if you had them. But I know we want to be brief because there's a lot of things going on today, and I want to be respectful of that at the same time.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we do have one more testifier, and if members do have questions, they'll be sure to get back to you. So next, I believe, is Mr. Chop, SEH. It's a Zoom testimony, so Mr. Yang.
Yeah, hello, my name is Jason Chop. I represent the Northeast Regional ATV Joint Powers Board. I am simply on here for technical questions and assistance regarding the projects that are being discussed at the time.
Very good. Thank you for being present, and I'll just, as earlier, again, see if there are any others that might like to testify on House File 279 in the audience. All right, I don't see any. So members, if you have any questions for testifiers or for the bill author, Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't know if this is a question for the bill author or the DNR or someone else, but I think I would appreciate some clarity and more context around how the state dollars are going to, like how those dollars interact with like private club dollars or maybe county. I'm not sure the best person to answer that.
Representative Purcell, that's definitely a good question for DNR. So if there's, I see the Assistant Commissioner is here today. If you wouldn't mind, or if there's somebody else that we might like. Oh, here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Nope, that's fine. Please introduce yourself for the record. And if you need the question repeated, we can have Representative Purcell do that. Otherwise, if you heard, we can just go ahead with your response.
Mr. Chair, members, my name is Laura Preuss. I work with the Department of Natural Resources Parks and Trails Division. And I understand the question to be about where the funding is coming from and going to. Through the ATV dedicated account, it's my understanding these funds would come from that dedicated account and be distributed as a grant that becomes sort of like a pass-through grant to support the work of these projects.
Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when the state puts the funds in, are these local clubs also, matching, or the counties or townships? I'm just sort of wondering like the bigger picture. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Go ahead. Whichever.
Do you have any? My understanding is that, the clubs, I think, certainly have their dues and things like that, but, Commissioner Jugovich could maybe answer this question better, being part of the Joint Powers Board, if you'd like to. But the work is all being done by volunteers, and so basically that money streams down from there, and then they get the work done and maintain those trails as clubs.
Representative Purcell.
And I don't think I probably answered your question all the way.
Well, just to clarify, so like if there are club fees and dues, that's not going into this dedicated state fund? That's a different pot of money, and so I'm just wanting the 10,000-foot view of like all the different sources of money, and then also, the potential sweat equity too. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Purcell, I think that, Mr. Hagemeyer may have an answer for you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if you just give me 1 second, I can pull up the fund statement. The ATV account, the dedicated account within the state funds, the Natural Resources Fund, there's an ATV account as their watercraft, snowmobile, variety of different accounts. The revenues going into there are primarily the ATV registrations. It's like $7.5 million per year. And then there's in lieu, or the unrefunded gas tax goes in there too. So there's a portion of the gas tax that gets dedicated to each of the motorized accounts. So those are the two funds going into the ATV account, and then the state appropriates those sometimes for trails, some for the DNR to do their work.
Representative Purcell, hopefully that's helpful. Generally speaking, we're talking about dollars generated by those participating in this activity. So hopefully that covers it. Anything else? Representative Purcell, okay. Representative Falconer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Congrats on your first bill in front of the committee, at least. I guess my only real question is, since the money's been given to private clubs, membership-driven, whatever, is there some sort of mechanism to know the effects of the dollars spent, like reporting back so we can see this is this is what was done, or this is why we're going to come back and ask for like a little bit more money because we didn't quite get there. Just wondering accountability or reporting back so we know, tracing the effects of the public dollars going to these projects.
Representative Felker, I think we're going to bring DNR back again because there is quite a extensive process to do the project and have the dollars dispersed. So I think, again, reintroduce yourself and
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Again, Laura Preuss with the Department of Natural Resources. There are many mechanisms to track and ensure what happens with these types of projects. When the DNR receives money through the ATV dedicated account that then is passed out in these grants to local communities to complete projects, we must then have contract and grant agreements that specifies what is taking place, what needs to happen by when. In addition, for these types of projects, all necessary reviews must take place. So even though they're appropriated as a specific designated grant through the ATV fund, they must also follow all applicable laws and permitting process. Thank you.
Representative Felker.
Thank you, Representative. This is actually an excellent question.
Representative Warwas, did you have more?
I don't, unless you want me to, unless you're ready to move the bill.
No, Representative Warwas, you just started. I was just trying to make sure that I recognized you properly.
I
Representative Schultz does have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Warwas. It's been interesting with the amount of different bills we've had today to send the money north. I just want to note for the record that you're a very kind Iron Ranger with the first bill before the committee that includes an appropriation to the city of Duluth. It's pretty impressive. Do you want to share anything about the history of ATVs in the city of Duluth?
Representative Warwas.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative Schultz. And I think we probably have a lot of history with the city of Duluth, and would like to find a legal means to get people out of the city of Duluth and to the trails that they love. And so, and I do try to be very kind. And we need Duluth, and Duluth needs us. So,
Members, any more questions? All right. Representative Warwas, do you renew your motion that House File 274 be, oh my goodness, 279 be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee? Again, members, that's House File 279.
I do, Chair, and thank you.
All right. Members, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Representative Warwas, your bill is on to the Ways and Means Committee. Congratulations. Next bill is my own, so Vice Chair Burkel, we will switch spots.
All right, Chair Heintzeman, would you like to move House File 281?
I would, Mr. Chair, I would recommend that House File 281 be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee.
Okay, thank you, Chair Heintzeman. Would go ahead and proceed with your bill.
All right. Members, I am happy to introduce House File 281. Like a number of other bills that we've heard on already today, it is a bipartisan bill. We appreciate that there's folks from both sides of the aisle working together. The bill allocates funding from the all-terrain vehicle dedicated account to support projects within the Prospector Loop and Voyager Country ATV trail systems. This initiative aims to enhance and maintain these vital, sustainable trail networks, promoting outdoor recreation and supporting local economies in northeastern Minnesota. The first part, the Prospector Loop ATV trail part, is the part that connects the communities of Ely, Babbitt, Embarrass, Tower, and Sedan. It's approximately 167 miles. The system utilizes a combination of forest roads, wooded trails, country road rights-of-way, and that's pretty common just trying to use whatever is available to complete the connections and the trail system. The trail system also links to existing Lake County, and Cook County ATV trails, offering extensive riding opportunities across the region. The other part is the Voyager Country ATV trail system. The Voyager ATV trail system connects the communities of Cook, Crane Lake, Camp 5 Township, and Ely. Again, combination of systems to make the trail system and to connect everybody. The funding will be used for the first phase of trail development in Koochiching County as they work to connect with International Falls. So there's actually a lot more I could talk about on this, but I think my testifiers will be able to better address it than I. So, Mr. Chair, I would turn it over to my first testifier.
Thank you, Chair Heintzeman, and we'll go to your first testifier, Nick Wagnum, Prospectors ATV Club. Identify yourself for the committee and proceed.
Thank you. My name is Nick Wagnum. I'm the president of the Prospector Loop Alliance. I'm going to take my hat off because that was my ATV Minnesota time. Now I'm here as the Prospector president. You know how it is to serve multiple roles in a small community. As Representative Heintzeman said, we're looking to expand our trail system, make some more connections. But before I go to that point, I would like to quickly address Representative Purcell's questions about funding. I think those are excellent questions. And I wanted to point out in our 10-plus years of building trail connections, we have used funding from local tax dollars, from the Federal Recreational Trail Program, from bonding, from manufacturers that have grant programs, and clubs have used the LCCMR funding as well. So we try to look at all those pots of money, right? Not just the dedicated fund, but how can we maximize funding to make projects work? And I don't know if that gets to your question, but I thought that's kind of where you were heading with that. Okay. Just so to give you a little background on what we've been doing, we identified 4 connections that we've been working on. We called them Connect 4, after the little board game, if you remember that back in the day. So we're down to the 4th one. The other 3 have either been completed or will be completed this summer. Those include connections from Babbitt to Hoyt Lakes and over to the Iron Range OHV State Recreation Area in Gilbert. The Bear Run segment, which connects the David Dill Taconite State Trail to a number of existing forest roads, along with several resorts. And this summer, we're looking to connect from Tower over to the Boys Fort Band property on Highway 169 and their businesses they have in that area, along with a connection over to Pfeiffer Lake campground area with trail segments over to Voyager and Quad Cities. So our final connection of Connect 4 is rebuilding a former railroad grade that connected the Cloquet line out of Ely to the Echo Trail. And the Echo Trail, if you've ever been on it, very beautiful road segment that goes from Ely all the way to Crane Lake. We will look to rebuild a bridge over the Range River, and again, trying to maximize our dollars, right? We're looking to reuse a bridge that is currently over the Quishway River. If we can get a bonding bill through this year to get that replaced, we'll move that bridge from one location to another, since it would serve our needs for that purpose. Our projects have been reviewed by DNR's Tower Office, recommended for funding by ATV Minnesota, and we are part of the statewide master plan of ATV trails. I mentioned we've been working on this for over 10 years. We have a growing membership of volunteers that help make these trails possible by keeping them open and doing the maintenance every year. Thank you for your support of our request. Thank you to our Representative Heintzeman for sponsoring this bill, and thank you for your time today.
All right, thank you for your testimony, Mr. Wagnum. Next up, I think we have Tom Dougherty. Please identify yourself for the committee and proceed with your testimony.
Mr. Chair, Tom Dougherty, Voyager Country ATV. I'm one of the new kids on the block. I have a lot of enthusiasm for what's going on up north. But I'm here today, and I thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House File 281, and to Chair Heintzeman and his co-authors for introducing this bill. As I said, I represent the Voyager Country ATV Club, and I'm seeking your support for this bill, which provides critical funding from the dedicated ATV account to continue developing and maintaining Voyager Country ATV trail system. The Voyager Country ATV system spans across portions of Koochiching County northern St. Louis County and connects communities of Crane Lake, Cook, Bike, and the surrounding areas. This system provides vital link between state forests, county lands, public access points, allowing riders to safely travel through some of the most scenic and rugged terrain in Minnesota. It also ties into the Prospector Loop system, creating an interconnected network of trails that enhances regional tourism and recreational opportunities. House File 281 will ensure that Voyageur Country ATV will remain safe, accessible, and well-maintained for years to come. These funds will allow us to complete key trail connections and enhance infrastructure and continue to build sustainably, environmentally responsible trail systems that support both recreation and conservation. Members, this is not just a recreational bill. It's an economic and community investment. Supporting House File 281 means supporting the businesses, the families, and the outdoor enthusiasts who depend on these trails. On behalf of the ATV Club, I strongly encourage you to support this funding to keep Minnesota a premier destination for ATV riders. And something that, you know, being relatively new to this, something that I've noticed and I feel very strongly about is throughout Minnesota and in our communities, we need things that will attract people, not only just to recreate in our communities, but to come and live there, work there, and put people in our schools. And in Kuchiching, we're fairly isolated. And we all know you can work from anywhere in today's world. And we're seeing people wanting to relocate and come to northern Minnesota because we have these fantastic recreational opportunities that are funded through things like this, a dedicated account, ATV riders with their registration fees, funding their own trails. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you for your testimony. We have one more testifier possibly on Zoom. If Mr. Chop still is there for just technical assistance, or do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add at this time. Again, here to assist with any technical questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to testify on this bill, for or against? If not, we'll move right to member questions if we have any. Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the testifiers and Chair Heintzeman for bringing this bill. So I've only been in the legislature for one term prior to this, and the Prospector Loop is a name we've heard many times before this committee. I don't know how many bridges there are over the Quishue, but I have at least cross-country skied over, or maybe dog sledded over one of them. So this is a corner of Minnesota that's really near and dear to a lot of Minnesotans' hearts, even if we don't have the privilege of living there anymore or getting to work there. But I remember, I think it was like $1.2 million we allocated last year. And so I'm wondering if this is for like the first 3 connections of that Connect 4, and then wondering sort of like what Representative Falconer was asking about that accountability, if there's information or particular report. My understanding was that there is an environmental assessment worksheet happening for this trail. What's the status of that? Before we're allocating more funds, I'm wanting to do a look back on the funds we allocated. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Heintzeman.
Thank you, Chair, and Representative Purcell. So I'll start and then turn it over, but just to be clear again, primarily what we're doing is we're going to maintain and enhance this trail system, but there's probably more to that than I can cover. So again, I will defer to my testifier.
Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Purcell, to your question. Yes, I've been here before this committee numerous times. I think last year was the last time I was here, not in this building, but a different one. And that was for the connection from Tower or to Pfeiffer Lake. Again, I mentioned the connection to the Boys Fort Band. We're trying to work with them to make some assistance to their facilities so ATVs can get in and out of there. And that project is up for bid for this summer's construction season. So, but all the environmental assessment worksheet and permits are in place for that. So we're just waiting for the final approval from the engineer, that guy on Zoom who keeps saying he's not going to talk to us. He's the one finishing the documents, right? You know how those engineers are. So yes, to your question, I'm sorry, we are pursuing along those lines. Those monies will be spent, and we will be able to proceed forward with that connection and make those projects completed. So thank you.
Representative Purcell.
I guess my understanding is we don't have like the reports. I don't know if this is DNR or research because those monies are still like encumbered, but the projects aren't finished. Is that correct? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there someone from DNR that maybe could address that?
The question is more about a history of money spent, but.
Please address yourself again for the committee. And did you get the question, or do you want to repeat it?
I believe so.
Okay,
Mr.
go ahead.
Chair, members, my name is Laura Preuss with the Department of Natural Resources. Thank you for the opportunity to join you here. Yes, when we have a pass-through grants at the Department of Natural Resources, we take what is directed in the legislation and convert that into our pass-through grant and contract language.
Yes.
And then we have a period of time for those projects to be completed. And so, as we've heard here, some of those are still in the process of being completed. And so we could provide information, working together about the status if that were needed. We could get some additional information on that. But in general, that is the responsibility of the person who's receiving the grant recipient to communicate and convey what has been completed through a grant project. And then we ensure that the grant agreement has been completed.
All right, Representative Purcell. Nothing? Any other questions from members? If not, we'll proceed to, Chair Heintzeman, would you like to renew your motion to refer this to Ways and Means? Maybe
Yes,
wrap
Mr.
things up.
Chair, I would renew my motion that House File 281 be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee and conclude simply by saying I invite members of the public and also my colleagues to participate in this fall's ride. We just about every fall, we have an opportunity available for members of this committee and of the legislature to participate in maybe a personal inventory of the work that has been happening and been done in these trail systems, on these trail systems. And I'd encourage everyone to take advantage of that. It's really incredible to be out and in the woods and on the trails and through all these trail systems, across the bridges. I usually have, and my son Ryan's actually here today, he's 11. He's come along on a couple of these things, he's waving. And a number of others, Representative Finke, you and I talked today as well about maybe doing something like that at the next opportunity. And I just think it's incredible, this resource, and a lot of times we don't even know it's there. Maybe there's more of a technical conversation here happening today as there frequently is in the legislature, but when things really come down to it, it's about creating those opportunities for Minnesotans. So, Mr. Chair, I will conclude with that.
All right, members, Chair Heintzeman has renewed his motion that House File 281 be re-referred to Ways and Means. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion carries. It's pretty weak, guys.
Yeah, it's kind of like this one. I heard what it was.
All right, Representative Burkel, I believe you are last on the agenda, and your bill, House File 1327, is being laid over. If you would like to lay 1327 over for possible inclusion as a member of the committee, you may make that suggestion.
Thank you, Chair Heintzeman. I'd like to move House File 1327 to be laid over.
All right, very good. Thank you, Representative. And go ahead and introduce your bill and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Heintzeman. Members, House File 1327 is a result of years of discussion between manufacturers, dealers, volunteer ATV clubs, and others at the DNR. The bill contains two parts. As you can see, first, it increases the allowable weights of ATVs on public trails from 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. And secondly, it removes a reference to tire pressures. As to the weight increase, as we've seen the industry change and grow, consumer preferences for versatility and new technologies are moving the ATV industry in these new directions. And this means adding cabs, doors, and the like, other features such as that for recreating year-round. Beyond that, and perhaps the most compelling part of this discussion is being led by a company in my district, Polaris, innovating towards electric alternatives to gas-powered ATVs, which of course increases weights with the batteries involved by up to 40%. So with that, that's really kind of the guts of the bill. We can maybe turn it over to testifiers now.
Being justified, Representative Burkel. So if your testifier would like to proceed, please introduce yourself to the record. Chair Heintzeman, committee members, thank you for the opportunity to testify today on support of House File 1327. My name is Ron Potter. I am the current president of the All-Terrain Vehicle Association of Minnesota. I want to thank Vice Chair Burkel, Chair Heintzeman, Representative Kegel, and Representative Eigel for introducing this very important bill for us. I'm here to voice my strong support for this bipartisan bill, which addresses a couple important issues in the definition of all-terrain vehicles, which we've been trying to resolve for several years. First issue is the low-pressure tires. This is not defined anywhere in statute. This is kind of a carry forward from the early days of ATVs when the suspension was essentially the tires, and most tires ran with 5 pounds of pressure or less. Technology has certainly advanced. Current ATVs have a very sophisticated suspension system. Low-pressure tires are no longer the norm. A better definition is simply stating 3 to 6 tires and dropping any reference to low pressure or non-pneumatic tires. The other issue we'd like to address today is the vehicle weight. Currently, we have a maximum weight of 2,000 pounds. We support raising that to 3,000 pounds. First is we see the shift to more side-by-side machines, more families enjoying the sport, and more riders my age enjoying the sport. Current trail riders, current trail systems provide for multi-day riding opportunities. And on these extended trips, the riders and the gear want to be comfortable and dry, and they prefer to have them in a cab that keeps the dust out of the passenger area. These enclosed cabs add weight to the vehicles, and on almost all side-by-sides that have an enclosed and insulated cab, they exceed the current weight limit of 2,000 pounds. Increasing the weight to 3,000 pounds is not an issue for our trails nor our trail maintenance. Most of our maintenance equipment already exceeds 3,000 pounds, and our trails are designed to accommodate the weight increase. The weight change is also necessary as the industry continues to move towards electric ATVs. 4-passenger electric ATV with the batteries exceeds the current weight of 2,000 pounds, and so we want to encourage the development of these type of ATVs. I urge that one other thing, I want to emphasize that we support the change in the weight, but our clubs are adamant that the maximum width of ATVs on trails remains at 65 inches. So I urge the committee to support this bipartisan bill. I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. Our next testifier on the list for today is Mr. Burke. If you could introduce yourself for the record and go ahead, that'd be great.
Chair Heintzeman, members of the committee, thank you very much for the chance to visit with you a little bit today. My name is J.R. Burke. I'm with Polaris. Along with our over 50 small business dealers, hundreds of suppliers across the state, tens of thousands of customers, we really touch every corner of Minnesota. I'm here proudly in support of House File 1327. Certainly appreciate the sponsor and others for carrying this bill forward. You know, the DRR collects some pretty interesting information. One of the things that they collect is information on recreational ATV registrations in this state. Interestingly enough, the county that we're in right here, Ramsey County, ranks 11th of 87 Minnesota counties in terms of ATV registrations for recreational use. Next door in Hennepin County, that county ranks second, only to St. Louis County in the number of recreational ATV registrations. Maybe the most interesting part about it is that those products are not operated here. Where they are operated is in Representative Burkel's district and Chair Heintzeman's district, where Chair Heintzeman's district represents the fourth largest operated county of the 87 counties where ATVs are operated recreationally. So it's not really a metro thing, a non-metro thing, a partisan thing. It's a Minnesotan thing. People like to do this sort of thing. There's hundreds of thousands of them out there. And really, they do it no matter where they reside. They like to get in their machines. They like to go out and enjoy the outdoors and so on and so forth. And they do it across the state, and they bring a lot of economic input and opportunity to these communities, as other testifiers have mentioned on bills. The handout that you have today, I wanted to highlight a couple of quick things. The permissible Class 2 ATV weights versus other forms of outdoor recreation and the engineering facts that are out there and are already standardized in our industry, these facts disprove any notion that House File 1327 will have a direct correlation on adverse impacts to Minnesota's managed ATV trail system. And I would really call it managed. I think that's been highlighted today. When compared to other common public trail users, the fact is that even at the allowable weight provided in this legislation, the average Class 2 ATV will still vary only slightly over Class 1 ATVs, which weigh 1/3 to half of what Class 2 ATVs typically do in the trail surface pressure at least, and just over double that of an average hiker. The truth is that on a per square inch basis, is which is how our industry measures weight that comes in contact with the trail surface, you can press your thumb against the desk in front of you and apply more pressure than a 3,000-pound Class 2 ATV applies against the trail surface that it's operating on. Those are just the engineering facts. As you can see, this is because low pressure tires on the right-hand side of your handle, the low pressure tires or the standard tires that are required to be produced on our machines under federal law are non-highway tires. These tires, even though we're working on the definition for tire here, are low pressure flotation tires. They are designed to expand in size as weight goes up. So the trail does not experience more pressure. The contact patch actually gets bigger and disseminates that weight over a larger trail surface. Despite these facts, and I should say this, it results in less compaction, less rutting. Despite these facts, Minnesota currently does have one of the most restrictive ATV weights anywhere in the country at 2,000 pounds. The most common weight limit is 3,500 pounds, and states like California, Colorado, Michigan have no weight limit at all. Chair Heintzeman, members, the question that this legislation presents is not whether to restrict ATV use across Minnesota, but how to support the benefits of it in a managed way. House File 1327 is a reasonable step in that direction. The industry is ahead of this bill. We have already taken significant steps around tires, suspension that was talked about earlier, to reduce impact to the trails in which we have the privilege to operate across Minnesota. I thank you and all the members for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Do stand by. I'm guessing there will be some. Next is Kyle from Recreational Off-Highway Vehicle Association. If you would introduce yourself and proceed, that'd be great.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Kyle Makarios, and I'm here representing the Recreational Off-Highway Vehicle Association, a national trade association formed to promote the safe and responsible use of recreational off-highway vehicles, sometimes referred to as side-by-sides or UTVs. We strongly support House File 1327. Representative Burkel's bill responds to what our industry is seeing, that more and more consumers prefer off-highway vehicles that have features such as enclosed cabs, making them heavier. We're also very excited about the potential growth of the market for electric ROVs, which, as Representative Burkel has mentioned, are heavier than gas-powered vehicles. We see this bill as a common sense response to consumer preference for enclosed cabs and off-highway vehicles, as well as the electric ROVs that have come onto the market. And as you've heard from Polaris, we know that with better wheels, better wheel technology, and properly properly inflated tires, these heavier vehicles can actually decrease wear and tear on trails by spreading the load out further. We encourage this committee to act favorably on this bill and include it in an omnibus bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, and I will again just confirm that there may be someone from the audience that would like to testify, in addition to those that have already. Not seeing any. Members? Questions? Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair Burkel, and to all the testifiers. So I just Googled how much my car weighs, and it's a similar weight to what we are proposing here. So I'm wondering about in that weight increase, like we've seen cars increase in size and weight, whether it's batteries or whether it's kind of bells and whistles. Maybe Polaris can answer this, like what's the cost of a new machine if you have electric machines versus a gas power right now?
Mr. Burke.
Chair Heintzeman, Representative Purcell. The highest end machine that Polaris produces is primarily used for utility or work purposes. That's about $55,000. The average recreational side-by-side is going to be anywhere between $15,000 and $30,000 probably, in that range.
Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And do you know what those weights are for those things? And also, if you can please include vehicles that are electric powered? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Purcell. Mr. Burke, I think there is also a difference, if I recall, because we did have a day, and I believe there was a number of members there out at your Winona facility, and there was options with the electric vehicles in terms of batteries. So you may want to mention that also, because to extend range, that is a challenge with the current weight requirements. So, Mr. Burke.
Sure. Chair Heintzeman, Representative Purcell, thank you for the question. You brought up your car, so I just want to make a distinction between the tires particularly. Your car, if you look on the tires sidewall, it's a DOT-approved tire. It's designed for the road, an improved surface, I'd just call it. They're going to be at 35 pounds per square inch or higher. Sometimes if you're hauling a heavy load, they're going to have you at 50 PSI, so on and so forth. Our tires are going to run a third of that. That provides us an opportunity to absorb additional weight in ways that your car does not allow you to do that. Our suspensions, as I mentioned, they're called dampening suspensions. So as the product travels over the trail surface, it moves up and down. That's what a suspension is for. It actually reduces the downward pressure on the vehicle as it travels over that trail surface to avoid compaction and rutting as it travels over that trail surface. In terms of the weights themselves, the vast majority of ATVs today are below 2,500 pounds. We have Polaris, in terms of the electrification, you asked about that, Chair. We have a single row side-by-side called Ranger Kinetic. It has 2 batteries in it, a range of 80 miles. It weighs just under 2,000 pounds. In order to optimize this market in Minnesota for electric Class 2 ATVs, we need more weight. Many of you maybe have been in the legislature since Tesla came onto the market, and when Tesla was here, they talked about the fact that our batteries and our drivetrains are simply heavier. It's of nobody's fault but technology. And so in order for us to optimize this market for electric side-by-sides, or Class 2 ATVs as we call them here in Minnesota, we need more weight. We can't do cabs, batteries, and provide multi-row passenger vehicles under the current weight limit. It simply is not possible with the technology we have today.
Representative Purcell, anything further?
Yes, so as a participant of silent and not stinky sports, and I intersect with this trail system and these sorts of vehicles, I'm very interested in the electric option here. I know we're just increasing the poundage. We're not saying it can be more weight if you aren't creating the exhaust that these machines currently do. I guess I'm wondering, and maybe this is research, and again, sorry to put you on the spot, but like when we made the distinction that 2,000 was the maximum weight, when and why was that? And, is it just that sort of all of our vehicles are getting larger and heavier? I know it's different in other states, but again, just looking for more context. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Purcell, I think that might be more along the lines of a DNR question. I'm getting nods from nonpartisan, so there might be, I'm sorry. It does appear that Mr. Burke would like to address that. Go ahead.
Chair Heintzeman, Representative Purcell, the last time that this part of statute was amended was 2014, so it's been well over a decade.
All right. Representative Purcell, there are more questions I see from this side, so.
Yes, thank you.
We may want to come back if you have more beyond this one.
If, I don't know, maybe research can get back to me of like when, because actually that surprises me that that wasn't that long ago and that we've wanted to increase this weight by 50% just in the last 10 years. That's a little bit troubling to me. So maybe if there's a way to sort of get the like whole history, the look back of when we first were making laws on this and what the weight and size limits were and how that's changed over time, I'd appreciate that.
Representative Purcell, I think that information can be found. One of the things that I believe did touch on that to some extent was Minnesota has been an outlier on weight and at the moment is quite an outlier as most states around us have already made that increase. But if that information can be made available, might be potentially offline, I hope that would be helpful. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Burkel. So if I want to buy a electric side-by-side for my farm, can I deduct that as a capital expense? Can I deduct that on a Schedule F farm equipment?
Representative Burkel, I'm not sure that we were ready for an accounting question today, but if you would like to go ahead, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Nance, for the question. Not really sure how this is relevant to the weight of a vehicle, but yes, you probably could if you're using it for farm use or a percentage of it, possibly yes. Qualifying that I'm not an accountant, Mr. Chair.
Representative Hansen, if we might have an accountant in the audience that would like to address that, I would invite it. Otherwise, if you have more, that's just fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I won't take that as tax advice, Representative Burkel, but
please don't.
But I think it raises the point of when we change the law, and particularly when we're talking about opening up driving in the ditches, driving maybe to town, and increasing the weight. It's not just the trail. It may be other uses as well. So if I remember back to 2014 and even before, we had concerns even in the early 2000s about people driving trucks through lakes. That we were the tough mudder, not the run, but driving the trucks through wetlands, driving. We even talked about, I think, DNR having airplanes up to watch because that was how we found people driving through wetlands. That was pre-drone time. But there are consequences, and the reason for the regulations, I know people want to have fun, and people want to be able to do things, and people enjoy. And as we get older, we may want more comfort as well. But we have the responsibility for taking care of the resource. And so when you add more weight and more people with more weight and more use, whether it's on the trail or off the trail or in the farm country or in the ditch or on the way to the road, that all has a consequence. And that's what our responsibility is for stewardship. And how do you, 10 years from now, then do we need to go to 4,000? And then just because the size increases. So it's not just the trail, it's beyond and the impact of the resource. And there's been resistance in the past about having even better signage on the trails to protect, people from going off trail. We've had bills on allowing the ditch. So how do we protect the resource if we're going to increase? We want to decarbonize, but we don't want to destroy. How do we make sure that we're not destroying that which belongs to all of us?
Representative Hanson. So I should probably quickly mention for those that are following along today, maybe not in the room, as we're talking about ATVs in general and their impact to our natural resources. And a lot of folks here today would probably volunteer to come down and talk extensively about what our trail ambassador programs are doing. For those of us that are out on the trails frequently, it's amazing how many high-vis vests you see on a daily basis out in our trail systems, as those programs are there to help assist with training and helping people not only stay safe, but protect land and protect our resources along trails. And if there was a case of resistance to signage, which I'm sure there was in some case, I think that now more than ever, people are very actively working to make sure that we ride on our trail systems and keep our machines on those designated routes. Representative Burkel, if you did have an answer to the question, I would certainly give you an opportunity.
Thank you, Chair Heintzeman. Not so much an answer, just a comment that, as a technology, understanding we need to be responsible using these trails, but just reflecting on the comment Mr. Burke made about the number of registered users down in the metro area. I think the 7-county metro area is the highest percentage of ATV registrations in the state. Those folks are driving up north into our counties up north and using our trails, and we're hoping that they're responsible as well, not just the guys mudding it up there, like you say. I think that's a misperception maybe at this point, something from the past, and I think that responsible users know better.
Representative Finke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's not to my question, but I would just say that just because somebody lives in Ramsey or Hennepin County doesn't mean that they're going to be responsible. I don't think our side would just say, oh, they're from the city, then they're responsible, That's
fair enough.
Representative Finke, I think that that comment was generally just pointing out that users are in all corners of the state.
Yeah.
No one location, and we wouldn't want to generalize when it comes to those kinds of things. And your comment is well taken, Representative. Any question further?
Yes, I do have a question. Just educationally, right? You said that these machines, recreational machines, are $15,000 to $30,000 generally. That's about right? Do these machines get heavier? When these machines get heavier, does that continue to increase the price?
Mr. Burke.
Chair Heintzeman, Representative Finke, there's probably a loose correlation with that. I think, and I'll put it as practically as I can, because I'm not in our pricing team, but the more materials you have, the heavier it's going to be, the more materials it has, probably the pricier it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So yes, I would say just generally speaking, it probably does cost more money.
Representative Finke.
Thank you. And I don't own an ATV. I assume you have to purchase a trailer. If you purchase a bigger one, you might have to purchase a bigger trailer. I had no idea that the sport, and I'm just saying this honestly, I had no idea that the sport was so expensive. And I do wonder, because we also have heard a lot last year and this year that the sport is really growing, as I understand it. The sport is currently growing, and the sport is currently very, it takes a lot of recreational income to be able to purchase a recreational vehicle of that cost. And I'm just wondering if there's any concern that you will price yourself out of the growth that you're seeing, because income is fragile, and I don't know if maybe the growth is less new people joining the sport and the sport generating more income from the people who are participants. But I do feel like it's worth noting that, if the machines get bigger and the costs go up, that growth may come to backfire. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about that, because I do think recreational income is at risk.
Representative Finke, I think that is a terrific question. And for those that may be looking to access our ATV trail system, I would mention, since I personally have been through this and look at the costs of a new machine, Marketplace is incredible. And I'm one of those that has been, fortunate enough to find a older model machine, and the prices are significantly lower to be able to maybe acquire equipment that's used as opposed to new. I think the prices we were talking about earlier are for new machines. Mr. Burke, if you had more to offer, that'd be great.
Yes, Chair Heintzeman, Representative Finke. That was a really insightful question, and I mean that sincerely. This industry grows between 2% and 4% per year currently. So in the current price point, just as a general matter, it grows at about 2 to 4% per year. And it's not just here in Minnesota, it's across the U.S. If you want to think about how weight attracts people into this industry, I think I maybe mentioned during my comments or a question responding to Representative Purcell, but the vast majority, when I mean vast, I mean upwards of 90+% purchase machines below 2,500 pounds. It's about 94% of people who are going above 2,000 pounds are already in a machine that is below 2,000 pounds. So what they're doing is they're kind of up purchasing, if you will. They are already in this industry. And I think that's an important point to make, because I know I've heard from some other stakeholders that there's perhaps, opening this up, it's going to create this just influx of people on the trails. It's going to overburden the trails and so on and so forth. That just, the retail figures simply don't support that suggestion. But this is a very, the point that you make on discretionary income, discretionary recreational income, we've acknowledged that as an industry, and that's why you're seeing in some communities across Minnesota even, but certainly across the country, is there's a couple of detractors from recreational ATV use. It's the cost of the machine, it's additional equipment, like you mentioned, trailers, it's distance from the riding areas. As we all know here in Minnesota, there aren't really trail systems down in Representative Purcell's district. They're up in the northeast. That's where the public land is located. In much of Minnesota, it's ag, it's privately owned, trail systems are not available, so people travel. So there's distance from where the trails are located. It's insurance, it's, where do I keep this machine? All of those things, those are detractors for sure. Polaris and others have taken upon themselves to work with some local governments, some state governments, to create rental programs. So folks that maybe don't have those resources to participate, they can introduce themselves into this type of recreation in the outdoors. And as Representative Heintzeman mentioned, there's just a lot of beauty to be seen, regardless of how you choose to do it. We're trying to make that more accessible through different models of being able to get behind the wheel, whether it's through ownership, lower cost units, or rental programs where you don't have to be burdened with the cost of ownership and insurance, maintenance, all of those things. So I hope that gives a little bit more context on the industry and how we're trying to evolve as we go through.
Representative Finke, okay, thank you. Next up, Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Burkel, for bringing this bill. Where I live in east central Minnesota, we're right close to Wisconsin, and kind of the joke there is that it's Minneapolis's playground by the locals there. And, there's a tremendous amount of ATV traffic that goes down Highway 48, or it's on trailers, but it goes down Highway 48, goes into Wisconsin, and the Gandy Dancer Trail that does go on both sides of Minnesota and Wisconsin, but it's Wisconsin, their limit is 3,000 pounds. So an ATV that is legal in Wisconsin, that same trail, same everything about it, in Minnesota is not legal to run on the, on really the same trail system. So that's a concern I have, and it is something that I think does need to be addressed. They have changed quite a bit, and as far as the biggest change is adding a cab and a second row of seats for the most part. And when we see families getting together and be able to have time recreating together, it's a great time to be able to do that and to enjoy the outdoors and have some camaraderie together and just helping experience the outdoors. So it's more of a comment than anything, but the other states around
are at a higher limit, and, we have interconnecting trails. And, right in my backyard is a perfect example of that. So, thank you.
Representative Jacob.
Thank you, Chair Heintzeman. Thank you, Representative Burkel, for bringing this bill forward. And yeah, my family, we are ATV enthusiasts, and we take these machines actually nationwide. To see mom and dad with grandma and grandpa and the grandchildren all together in one of these 6-seat machines, and this, something that those grandchildren are more enthused about than this thing, or it's phenomenal to see. But we have to go to Wyoming and other states because we can't do it here. So we need to make Minnesota competitive with other states so people from Minnesota can enjoy these machines. Thank you.
Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Burkel. And Mr. Chair, I just wanted to first thank you for today. Like the fact that we've had the chance to spend this day talking about and appreciating this sport that allows so many Minnesotans to get outside and to engage in such a way that we haven't always seen. And I really appreciated what Representative Finke said a moment ago, and the growing interest in this sport. And, similarly to what Representative Nelson shared a moment ago, I mean, it's fascinating to see just looking back at history within my own community, what this has looked like for us. And certainly cost is an inhibitor for some, but I think that as I just went back and looked at my life, I remembered back to 20 years ago when on the farm, we bought 2 brand new 4-wheelers because those were the only things that were available and basically the best technology available at that time, which would have fit within the guidelines that were in law at that time. And then 10 years ago, when the first of these side-by-side style vehicles were available. And the expansive growth that we've seen here makes me excited for what the future holds. Because, when we first got those 4-wheelers and I got to ride around with my grandfather on the farm and with my uncle and my cousins picking rocks, like that was the purpose of the 4-wheeler. And today, that same uncle is driving around in his side-by-side. He's had to upgrade his equipment, but he's driving around his now grandkids. And so I see it throughout my community today, whether it's seniors, whether it's youth on the farm, whether it's folks who work in construction and they're able to use this on the construction sites that they work on and then use them on the weekends. It's a huge part of the sport. And just in the last couple of weeks, it's been everybody's riding their side-by-side out onto the ice as we're ice fishing and enjoying the best of the days. So a lot of these things are so intertwined with our community. And so, it's especially highlighted in my own, and I know Representative Warwas has similar circumstances like this, but on the 4th of July in Hillman, Minnesota, right along the Sioux Line Trail, while it is the largest gravel road parade that you'll ever find, there is a higher propensity of side-by-sides found inside the city of Hillman on that day than there are other vehicles. And it just kind of shows where culture has gone and where community, and to this point that Representative Jacob mentioned, it's all about building community and having the best of the memories with every generation. And it's so awesome to see that more Minnesotans are experiencing this today. So excited to support this bill and to see what the future holds for this space. And I know it will continue to grow.
Representative Schultz, I really appreciate that comment because I was thinking about that as well today as we were prepping for this hearing. The side-by-side is kind of our generation's Willie's Jeep of our grandfather's generation. And you see them in barns and all kinds of places, and you can look and you see the general dimensions of the vehicle, and it is really amazing how it has changed how we live and work and play. Mr. Burke, I saw you waving a little bit.
Chair Heintzeman, Representative Schultz, and members, you mentioned the evolution, and I think here's an important point too, and it kind of goes back to Representative Hansen's question on farmers and even ranchers here in the state. And the price. These machines have gotten more expensive. So we produce, and virtually every manufacturer produces what's called a utility side-by-side. Ours is called the Polaris Ranger. What you would see over the course of that is a propensity towards greater fit and finish, which increases weight, more safety features, roll cages, seat belts, things like that. The price has gone up, but what you're seeing is that more farmers, upwards of 50, it actually increases about 1% per year. When we do our early buyer surveys, they say they purchase it for utility or work purposes, but increasingly want the fit and finish, the safety equipment, and all those things to be ample enough so that they can use them recreationally too. They may buy it for work, but they use it to have fun on the weekends. And that is just the reality of this industry.
Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you. I just heard you say the word safety, and I think that's a concern that as we're talking about this, to make sure that as the vehicles are getting larger and they're getting heavier, to make sure that safety is also part of that conversation and part of what is happening with the weight. So I'd love to be assured that as we've seen this growth, the statistic I saw was that 6 out of 100 Minnesotans own ATVs versus like 20 out of 100 Minnesotans hike. So it's great that there's growth and there's participation, but it's has a long way to go to surpass the less expensive sports for sure. But I would love to hear more about the safety, because as we were talking about, I like the idea of removing the barriers, people be able to just rent a machine, but then that brings up safety concerns for me. That is my final question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Purcell. And before Mr. Burke addresses your question, I'm going to broaden horizons maybe. There's a number of us that get out our side-by-side equipment, and not only do we go and take advantage of that opportunity, but where the trail ends, we go to the bike rack and grab bikes off the back, mountain bikes, and then extend our activities for the day. And a lot of times people are combining the opportunity to take advantage of this equipment to get further in with their camping equipment, their fishing, swimming, whatever they're going to be doing through the day, biking like my family does, and extending that activity, whatever it might be. So, Mr. Burke, on the safety issue.
Yes, and I will tell you, Mr. Chair, and that Polaris literally in the last 5 years has created 2 categories, brand new categories of side-by-sides designed specifically for individuals like you. Because whether it's a snowmobile, whether it's an ATV, whether it's a side-by-side, oftentimes it is used as a tool by many outdoor recreants as a tool to get to solitude. Whether it's hunting, fishing, kayaking, mountain biking, whatever you choose, hiking and the like, that is just a reality of where the direction that this sport is going. On the safety point, though, which is a really good one, Representative Purcell, as I mentioned, if you look back at the history of motorized off-road recreation, everybody remembers the 3-wheelers, right? Those are no longer permitted to be sold in the primary market, which is brand new in the United States, because the Consumer Product Safety Commission and that industry came to an agreement not to do that. They're very unsafe. You then move to 4-wheelers, which provide more stability. In fact, many of you know former Governor Perpich. He actually rode a Polaris Sportsman. The first Polaris Sportsman ever taken off of our line in Rosa was Governor Perpich who did that. That was back in the 80s. And so that industry has been around for a really long time. It's also highly regulated by the federal government for safety, both lateral stability, occupant protection, things of that nature. If you take that one step further and you move to this category of Class 2 ATV, or what we call side-by-sides, UTVs, ROVs, and the like, those too are regulated by industry around, and so the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, it might even be referenced somewhere in state statute here on other areas of law. this industry is highly regulates itself and works with the Consumer Product Safety Commission around things related to safety, whether it's rollover protection, seat belts. We have sensors in our seats to make sure that the machine can only go a certain speed so that it discourages people not using their seatbelt. Obviously, if you look at our machines, our marketing, everything in there, safety, follow age restrictions or recommendations, all of those things are part and parcel to who we are as an industry. And so we have a very robust, highly standardized safety standard that we use to produce our machines. We tested those standards. We are darn near as precise in our safety standards around lateral stability, things like that, as the automotive industry is at this point.
All right, members, any more questions? Lead Fisher? Very good. Representative Burkel, if you would like to finish up with any thoughts, the bill's being laid over, you could conclude.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll just conclude quickly. I know we're running out of time here, but just really important for all of us to understand the economic, direct, indirect economic activity these machines provide to northern Minnesota. And in particular, I want to call out it's rules and regulations that are outdated like these that have put companies like Arctic Cat back home in Thief River Falls in the position they're in. Sad to see what's happening with the folks losing their jobs there, and I'm hopeful and remain very hopeful that something will come together before Mate comes and those folks are out of a job. But it's sad to see that happen. It's sad to see rules and regulations cause that. We've been waiting to hear this bill for, 4 years, I believe. It's time to have this discussion. I'm glad the bill is being laid over. We can continue to work on it. And with that, I'd like to thank my bipartisan group of authors, especially Rep. Cagle, for signing onto this bill. And I'll turn it back to you, Chair Heintzeman, to lay this bill over.
Thank you, Representative Burkel. And I too want to thank all those that were here today for this hearing and for the really, really good, deliberate conversation that we've had today, the questions. I think the public benefited from this hearing and from an opportunity to discuss this bill. So with that, members, House File 1327 is laid over for possible inclusion in a future bill, and we will adjourn.